Cool.
Kaleb, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing? It's Van, right?
Yeah. Um, yeah, man, it's great. It's great having you. It's an honor. What you guys do is extremely interesting. So you're a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, and now you're involved with Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes. Yes.
Tell me, I've in doing a bit of research for today's podcast. You played rugby,
Yes, I did.
really?
Yes.
Um,
I obviously played American football
yes.
through high school and as a little kid and stuff, and that's
Okay.
actually why I went to college at Utah State was to be on the football team there, and I actually tore my knee out, destroyed my ACL, and my meniscus got ripped off, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So I rehabbed that back, and that's actually when I went to the Marines. I was like, because I kind of had an experience in high school where I kind of got a bad taste in my mouth because of the refs, and just wasn't a cool experience, And so my heart kind of wasn't in football anymore, really.
Yeah.
But I'd always wanted to go into the Marines, and so I went and did that. But I was already in school too, so I was an M1 tank crewman, and then I was going to school, and a bunch of guys came up. They were big dudes, and they were like, "Hey," they just came up to me like, "Hey, have you ever played rugby or anything?" I was like, "No." And they were like, "You want to come play?" I was like, "Yeah, why not?" So, and now I tell people I'd actually rather play rugby than football.
Okay, and now I have to ask. Sorry, I'm actually. This is the first time the Skinwalker thing has probably segued into rugby.
Right? First time ever.
Yeah, I have to ask, which is tougher, rugby or NFL?
Oh man, that's. I think there are things where you have to take into account on both.
Yeah.
But I put it this way: is after a good hard football game, the very next day you're in bed, but by the end of the day you can kind of get up, kind of get moving around. After a good rugby game, you're in bed for 3 days. So, so I definitely think I think you definitely get more beat up in rugby, even though you don't realize it. But
I've heard a comment from Dwayne Johnson, Dwayne the Rock Johnson. He played. He spent some time. I can't remember if it was Samoa or New Zealand, and he actually played rugby for a little while. And he said it's the toughest sport he's ever played. Because
I agree. I think when it comes down to like physicality and overall fitness and stuff, like rugby, you play, you're running all the time, and I'm not a good runner. That's why I was on team. I can lift heavy shit and throw it around pretty easy, but when it comes to running, that's not my thing.
NFL is like stop, start most of the time, right?
And that's the thing though, is how fast and how big those guys are. Like people don't realize that, and that's like so. When I was playing at Utah State, I'm 6'2", 250, or around that size right now. And I was going up against guys that, are like 6'9", 350 pounds. Like these guys are massive. And I don't think people really understand the level of fitness and also how smart these guys are. And it goes with rugby guys too. These guys it's so crazy the level at which these guys are performing.
Yeah.
And, I can't ever remember his name, but I know there was a famous rugby guy in like the 90s, and I can't remember who he was playing for, but like the Dallas Cowboys came to him because they wanted him to play middle linebacker for them. Really? And they're like, come and play football for us, because this guy was just nasty. But he's like, why would I come do that when I can stay here and more people in the world see me, kind of thing. But it was just, there's a lot of similarities, and it's
I wonder if it wasn't Jonah Lomu from the All Blacks.
I think it might have been. It was a big dude in the 90s, and he was just dominant, just crazy.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
It's really familiar.
I know that from South Africa there was a fly half called Nas Bueta, and I think he spent a season with the Cowboys as a kicker.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that there's been we'll have to do a whole nother episode.
Exactly. Book you for another one when we talk rugby. Great.
Yeah. I'm down. I'm down for that. So.
Awesome. Kaleb, okay. back to Skinwalker Ranch. It's a
Yes, sir.
it's a hotbed for paranormal activity, ranging from UFOs to
Yes.
I've heard witches, and obviously werewolves or skinwalkers, as you guys call them.
Yep.
How far back does this date? How far back do reports of this? When did it start?
So I want to say the first real good verified stories are potentially coming from like the 70s.
Okay.
For like current narrative that's connected to the ranch.
Yeah.
That I think that we could verify at this point. But we have this conversation all the time because we've found a Masonic symbol on the ranch, and it's something that we show a lot of people, and it's out there. And there's, if I remember correctly, there are some, oh gosh, my mind just went blank. There's an A and a W, and a date. So it's showing that somebody was there, and this is coming from the 1860s or 1870s.
Okay.
And what we found with that, and they're next to the Masonic symbol, and what we've been told and have been able to verify was that this was a gentleman named Augustus Wall, and he was a Buffalo soldier, or an African American who fought in the Civil War. I want to say he was a freed slave, fought with the Union, and stayed in the Army, was stationed out here, and the commanding officers of the Buffalo soldiers at Fort Duchesne and Fort Maiton were white men, and they were the commanders over the what they called Buffalo soldiers.
Right.
And Augustus Wall was actually a Masonic member with them, and there's some potential that he's the one that came in and actually carved this symbol out. So, and there's a couple things there that we have to mention too, is Fort Duchesne at that time was like 30-40 miles away, and this is a time obviously when horseback was the main mode of transportation out here. So thinking about a 40-mile trip, and this is really rough terrain, why would an individual get on a horse who's in the Army at this point and come all the way down here and take the time to carve this symbol into the rock? And it's literally just north of the homestead where I'm sitting at right now. I can literally walk to it in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And when you go up and look at this, all the holes, you can tell it was some kind of heavy punch.
Okay.
And this is, I'd imagine this is some pretty intense labor, getting this marking.
Yeah.
This
it's not
this
like the old hammer and chisel,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And it, they're pretty big holes. It's a pretty big symbol, and it's like, why of all places, why is that here? So, and then you also have, I don't know how much you've researched like American West, American like folklore, things like that.
Well, I believe that whole area is pretty, it goes back, it's a pretty interesting place, with Butch Cassidy and gold mines and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's
a lot of people don't know that. This is the area that Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid were running around in.
Wow.
We have all these gold mines up in the Uinta Mountains, or stories of them. And people don't realize the amount of like Indian wars that were fought in this area. And this goes up into like Southeast Idaho, where I'm from. And a lot of the wars that were actually out here actually had a higher death toll than the wars in the 1860s and 70s that everybody knows about. Because they were so overshadowed by the Civil War.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
So, which makes sense. But there's a lot of history out here. And when you kind of start digging into it, you start hearing the crazy stories. And then, we know the conquistadors and some of those expeditions actually were up here and made it this far north, if not further north.
Yeah.
And so it's like, there's I'm sure a lot of stories or a lot of things that happened out here that we'll never know what happened, or even have an idea of what they were, So there's a lot of cool history in the area.
Well, that just makes it more fascinating, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because there's obviously the legend that's been documented about the Utes and the Navajo, and they put a curse on the land with the skinwalkers and stuff like that. So there's actually that's like one of the legends, basically.
Yes, that's one of the many stories, and that's obviously one of the big focal points as to why the ranch has had potentially so much stuff happening here. And there's a lot of information there. The ranch is centrally located within the Uinta Basin.
Yeah.
It's literally right smack dab in the middle. And the Uinta Mountains are the only mountains in North America that go east to west. Everything else goes north to south.
I saw that in the show. Yeah, that is. And why is that? Well, we don't know, obviously.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah. What are some of the things that you've experienced that we haven't seen on the show?
So I've shared some of these stories quite a bit. The first real big experience that I had was over in Homestead 2.
Yeah.
Actually, I was standing between Homestead 2 and what we call Homestead 3, and these are the two oldest buildings, homesteads that were built. The first one was built, like, we figure, like 1915, sometime in that time frame.
And where are you sitting now?
So I'm in the command center right now, which
okay, cool. So
is yeah. So these are the newest structures on the property.
East.
So I'm all the way on the east side of the property.
Okay.
The oldest structure is all the way on the west side of the property, and that's what we call Homestead 3.
Okay.
And then Homestead 2 is very close to Homestead 3, and then that was built like the 50s. We think is when we have some record of that, and that's where you see most of the stuff on the television show is Homestead 2.
Yeah.
But the first thing I had happen was I was standing by one of the bait pens, or dog runs, as Bigelow's team called them, between Homestead 2 and Homestead 3. It was about 1:20 in the morning, pretty calm night. It was about this time of year, actually, June, last week of June, I think. And I was out there with two guests. They had permission to come out and kind of just spend some time on the property. And we were sitting there kind of talking, I can't even remember the topics of conversation, it was pretty general. And it actually makes me think that I think we may have actually been talking about if I'd had any kind of experience on the ranch at this point, now that I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
Which is kind of an interesting
because of the way the ranch reportedly interacts with you guys. It's kind of you dig. It's a bit of a give and take relationship, isn't it?
Yeah.
You dig, and we do something else. Or
it's interesting where we're literally talking about something, and that kind of activity occurs.
It's very reactive to what.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I was standing out there I don't remember a lot of cloud cover that night. It was very calm. I don't remember any kind of wind or anything like that. And I actually have a pretty good video where Erik and I are talking about this too on our website that we've launched with our insider program. And it was as if the whole area lit up, like you walk into a dark room and someone turns on the light switch. The whole area lit up, but it was green, like this bright green. And I could literally see everything, the rocks. There wasn't any shadows. But it was crazy. And out of the corner of my eye, I look over and there's this light descending out of the sky, and it looked like it was above Homestead 2. And I just caught a glimpse of this out of the corner of my eye. I turn and I look, and I watch this light as it comes down over Homestead 2. And it looked like it either went, we have this tree, these trees were planted around Homestead 2. Okay. And that's pretty common in this area.
Yeah.
And up where I'm from, there's not a lot of tree cover, and people do that to help stop the wind and stuff. So these trees around Homestead 2 form like this rectangular shape. And I don't know if that light went through there, like where right above the Homestead buildings, or if the light was actually further east and between the trees and where the mesa is. Okay. I couldn't tell you. But that light went behind the trees and everything just went black, like regular.
How far away were you from this? Well, from the light?
I was probably at most 100 yards or 300 feet.
Wow.
Somewhere in there. It was fairly close.
Close, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I knew that the light went behind the trees because I could see some illumination coming through the branches of the top of the trees.
Okay. So, I mean, Travis Taylor,
yes,
he got involved with you guys, from season 1, and certainly, in certain points of the season, he seems to be like very frustrated because he can't explain some of the stuff, and you could visibly see how frustrating it
Yes.
gets for him.
Yeah. And that's a common feeling with many of us.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. What do you guys think it is? I mean, everyone's probably got their own idea.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
If you can answer that, you're the famous person or the rich one. So that's kind of hard to explain because so many people have such a myriad or such a expansive collection of experiences out here. I've had experiences out here that the best way I can explain it is as a spiritual experience, and then other experiences I definitely feel it's more in like say the scientific realm or more this physical plane, or that's so hard to nail it down because so many people again have all these crazy experiences. So like that first experience I had, that was something that in my mind we sit here and try and figure out what something is, or we try to explain it, and some of the common things, but the time of the year, was it potentially say like a firework that someone had shot off? Possibly, but there was no sound. It did not flicker like when one of the sparks comes when a firework goes off. There's like those like the twisting and like there's a lot of movement with it, and flickering and things like that. It was a very constant, steady, bright light. There was none of that, and it was very defined in its descent. And there's just things that I feel comfortable in saying that I don't think it was anything from a firework, because there was only one light. It wasn't multiple.
Yeah.
I'd have heard some kind of report. I'm familiar with large explosions and stuff. I'm familiar with gunfire. I'm familiar with tank rounds and artillery rounds and things like that. Again, it was just silent. And then I've had the experiences. One of the creepier things that I've had happen, and it was actually myself and Tom Winterton that experienced this, is we had some trespassers come on a couple years ago, and this was before the show was even an idea.
Was this the I think I saw this in another podcast or on the show. I can't remember. Was it the devil worshiper thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so, and with that one, I come on, I find the gate down. We were actually out here. Sounds like you're familiar with it, because another group had been, we had some reports and had seen some things that this other group was actually going to try and come out here and for some reason, try and get on the property or whatnot, So Tom and I are out here all night long. We finally go home and we end up missing this second group coming in by like 30 minutes. I'd have to go through like the archives and find that footage, but the truck pulls up and just pops right through the barbed wire gate that was down here. And the biggest things for me was the ranch that night, the tension, the energy, if you will, was very dark. It was, and it was, both Tom and I were so uncomfortable, and just like you could feel it with, like, you could cut it with a knife kind of thing. But that energy just stuck with me, and the word or the emotion that kept coming into both our mind was violation. Like the ranch had been violated by whatever had been done out here. And this was early October time frame, and when you're walking along the canal out here at that time of year, all the weeds are dead, and some of these are pretty thick and they're pretty robust weed cover. And when you're walking through there, even in like good solid boots, you can feel those almost like they're punji sticks or something coming up underneath through your boot. And I found these little footprints, and I was like, that's either like a little kid or a really small female. And come to find out, it was like an 11-year-old girl that this group was like, she's Satan's offspring and she's gonna do all this stuff. Real creepy shit, right? And
wow.
And she's out here walking around barefoot through these weeds and stuff, and I'm like, how? What? And so we kind of get through there, and you know, I practice religion, and I feel I'm very spiritual.
Yeah.
And we did things that we felt would help protect us, and then did some of that. But it felt like the ranch. I remember it took us some time for that to kind of resolve itself out here. And then fast forward a couple years, and this really struck me with my law enforcement work, is I had some pretty brutal suicides that I responded to, specifically last year. And that same energy, that same darkness, that same just dark energy, very evil feeling, and just not good. That same presence, if you will, was at those scenes. And it just really struck me when I was going into these suicide scenes that I'd felt that before on the ranch, specifically at that time that those trespassers had come through. So for me, I was like, this is crazy that I'm feeling something very similar. And you know, why is that? Why is that? Something mentally, or why would I feel that way? And talking with other officers, they were like, yeah, that was really dark. They got that same feeling. And I think that's a very common feeling you'll get whenever you go through an experience like that. And to me, that's, I have my way of explaining that, but to say that's the only way to explain it, I won't say that. I'm sure other people would have their modalities, if you will, of trying to explain something like that. But for whatever reason, there's a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, it's almost like, in a way, and like you said, there's lots of ways to explain it. But you know, from our point of view, just listening to that story, with the ranch being reactive, you know, if you guys do something, the ranch pushes back. You guys were chasing devil worshippers, and you guys just got this bad vibe, you know, this feeling of death or evil, put it that way. It's almost like the ranch reacts to whatever is around it. Do you know what I mean? If that makes sense, I don't know. It's such a...
So one of the I know what you're getting at. So one of the conversations that we have is the ranch is actually, it magnifies what you bring with you.
That's exactly what I mean.
Because I'll be out here all the time by myself because of my job and my responsibilities out here. So I'm out and it's very peaceful. It's I feel like it's a good place to be. And that's one of my things is I do have to make sure that I'm doing things that I feel put me in a good place. And and it's something I always, and it's hard, you know, everybody has shitty days and has bad things going on, or really has their problems or their challenges that they're working through. And you know, but I try to be in a good place when I come out here, or really try to focus on that. And I obviously don't succeed all the time, but thankfully I feel like I've been out here long enough that I know this kind of sounds crazy, that the ranch kind of knows who I am. And you know,
but you still, you know, you have to get your mindset, you know, you've got to be you kind of have to psych yourself up and just be in the right mindset to be able to do your job effectively. Because there's no ways I'm staying there alone. I don't.
You know, and you know, there's crazy things, and I kind of have a hard time with some people's attitude where they're like, oh, I'll come out here and do this, do that, or I'm being called to the ranch. I'm like, dude, like, I'm not going to say no to what you're thinking, but at the same time, no, don't come out here, you know, kind of respect the place, you know, like, and law enforcement's kind of shown me that is, you never know what you're going to get. And people are very, I'm trying to say this in a nice way. People have their way of thinking, and you don't know what someone's done to affect that. And I've been in those situations where you're dealing with people that are so out of their mind because they're on some kind of drug or something that you cannot deal with them in a logical way, and they just are so emotional, and they're very dangerous. And I've had that experience. We've had people show up like that at our front gate, and they're very intense situations, and I've been out there with BIA officers and dealing with people, and so that we have an element out here, and it is you can't take it lightly, and you have to have your mind in the right place when you're dealing with people, and and then throw in.
Sorry, carry on.
And just throw in some of these experiences that we're having on the ranch, and we really are trying to figure out what's going on. And again, if you can figure that out, great. But I just enjoy the journey, really.
Well, it's a damn interesting journey. It really is. I mean, it's not your normal 9 to 5, is it? It's
no, it's not.
But because of the show, have you guys had an increase in trespassing and stuff like that?
So we, again, this is a conversation and a question that we do have a lot. Are we catching so much out here because we have more cameras, we have more eyes?
Yeah.
Or is this kind of stuff happening all the time? But during the kind of the off season, or when we're kind of more just a smaller crew, are we just missing things just because you can't be everywhere at once, kind of thing?
Yeah.
And we're trying to, that's a correlation, I guess, that I do think we do notice that we do just catch more, but then obviously we are doing more invasive experiments and things like that, and maybe the ranch is reactive because of that. But then at the same time, I have experiences off and on and off the ranch that are during the off season, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. And people, I have a bunch of stories and these experiences that I've gone through on and off the ranch. And again, I've been out here for 5 years.
I think you misinterpreted my question. I think.
Oh.
So what I meant was in terms of people trespassing.
Oh,
on the ranch because of the show.
Yes. That has been. Sorry.
no worries. I didn't want to rub you up the wrong way and say, because of the TV, things are happening. No. That's not what I'm asking at all. Because you guys had the devil worshiper thing, and since the show, a lot of people know about it. So,
yes. So we have noticed definitely an increase in traffic coming down and wanting to see the ranch, obviously.
Yes.
But I would say the amount of people trying to trespass and have kind of ill intent, I think that's stayed about the same. Okay. It's just if some of these groups knew about the ranch before somehow, and they were always there. And with the increase in publicity and things, obviously from the TV show, we do have a lot more just normal people who are curious and coming down. And we had a gentleman from Australia. I can't remember which part, but he just came out here, and that was the whole purpose, is to come to the ranch. He didn't have anything else he was going to do. And it just kind of blew us away, because he comes down to the front gate, and Tom Winterton was the one who talked to him, and he's like, I can't let you go any further. And the guy's like, yeah, I know. And we were just so blown away that people were just so willing to come so far just to even just be at the front gate and just kind of be there for even 5 minutes, but the trespassing issue, we do have issues there. We have had things happen where cameras have been interfered with and things like that. But and I don't like going in too much into security because of protocols and how we, and things like that. It's just a safety thing. But people have been charged. People have been arrested. Again, that's why I'm out here.
Yes. Okay. Interesting. Has the Pentagon ever been involved?
With us, no. To my knowledge, prior
with Bigelow, Robert Bigelow.
You're getting into kind of the Bigelow days.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of that information's out there. And to my knowledge, that's when there was some kind of involvement at some level, whether it was just funding or if there were other things going on. That's kind of what we're actually all, like everybody else, just trying to figure out what actually happened during the Bigelow era. Yeah. And I'm sure you're probably familiar with Chris Bartell, and he's been he was a security guard from 2010 to 2016 out here. And he's actually been such a great source of information on a lot of this. But what happened prior to that, I honestly couldn't tell you with any kind of definite answer that, you know, men in black were coming out here, things like of that nature. I don't know. I'm kind of with everybody else. I know that there was some kind of funding, some kind of program, and Bigelow got a lot of money. We've heard to the tune of $22 million to do stuff out here. And I don't know what kind of level of interaction there would have been through the Pentagon or the DOD or anything like that.
We probably won't know, or no one will probably know because it's probably not going to be released.
Yeah, and we know that there's lifetime NDAs that have been signed by individuals on Bigelow's team. Yeah. And it's like, why would they need a lifetime NDA? And Travis actually has talked about this, where there's individuals that were involved with NASA. I think this is kind of a good explanation how we might find something. Okay. Is there are people in like Huntsville, Alabama that were working for NASA in like the 50s and 60s, and their program gets cut, and they have all this paperwork and all this documentation on what they were working on. And now they're like, well, what, you know, they just take whatever was in their office, they take it home, put it in some filing cabinet, and everyone forgets about it. And then when these people pass away 50, 60 years later, and someone comes in to remove things from their house, they start going through and find these people were involved with these crazy programs that no one ever heard about. Yeah. And so it's like, maybe that's how we're sometime in the future, we'll get some information that way. Someone was involved somehow, and, you know, they had stuff in their house and no one ever knew about it. Wow. And you never know how we're ever going to get information out, but it's one of those things.
Yeah. And, you know, because a lot has been, I suppose a lot has been documented about Skinwalker Ranch in the media. I mean, there's, I think a movie's been made, if I'm not mistaken. There's been a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there's been a couple. I know there was like one entertainment movie kind of based on it a couple years ago. I've never seen it. I know there's been some documentaries. I honestly haven't seen many of them. I know we had a guest out here a couple years ago that was doing one. I never watched that one. That was actually one of the first real groups of people that we had out here when I was out here. That was the group that had Robbie Williams out here. If you're familiar with him, that was a cool experience just because Robbie was a really cool guy. And
he's got an interest in this stuff, right? In the paranormal.
He was a very curious person, just wanted to know and had heard stories, and he asked to be a part of it. And, you know, and I actually enjoyed his hanging out with kind of a security guy too, because he was British Army and in Afghanistan and stuff. So you know, we got along pretty well. So
yeah. Okay. Tell me, what do you enjoy most about the job?
I guess kind of that sense of the adventure and being a part of it, you know, like you tell me 10 years ago I was going to be a part of something like this, I had to be like, no, you know, just being a part of it. And there's definitely seeing some very interesting, unexplainable things. And if you're familiar with the experience that Travis and I had just outside the trailer here, where we saw this rectangular object that was floating in the air and 20 feet from us, you know, that's a crazy thing that I've experienced out here. And if that's probably one of the top 3 crazy things I've physically seen with my own eyes, you know. And I'm actually wanting to do more videos with Travis on that, so people really understand what was going on there. Yeah. Because they kind of brushed over it when they were kind of showing that through the TV show.
Why?
But it was I don't know. But that's fine. That's why we're kind of doing the websites, because we want to get more. We want to get more information out.
You've said that we as viewers see about 1%.
Yes.
Of the stuff that happens. And you've had experiences off the ranch.
Yes.
Now that would freak me out to to no end. That's basically the Hitchhiker Effect.
Yes.
Which has been documented. Yeah. So what stuff has happened? And how far away? First of all, how far away do you live?
So I live about 20 minutes away. But as the crow flies, I'm like 10 miles away. It's fairly, I'm far, but I'm not far, you know. It's 15, 20 minutes drive. But the craziest thing actually happened about a month and a half ago. And this was one that really shook me a little bit. It's very similar to what Travis and Erik described during the experiments last year.
Yeah.
Where they both woke up around what we kind of figure within minutes of each other, if I remember correctly. They both felt very terrified, like shaking of just this terror. And it's kind of hard to explain. And if you haven't been in like a life or death situation, it's kind of that level. Yeah. But and that's where I'm like, I've responded to active shooting calls. I've responded to some very crazy things in law enforcement. And yeah, you have that fear, and you can hear that in people's voices and stuff. But you know, with your training and your mindset and all that stuff, you're able to control yourself and go in and think, and you keep thinking, and that's a big thing. But I've never felt that level of terror. And what happened was it was like midnight, 1 o'clock. I'm in a dead sleep at my house, and my wife's next to me.
Yeah.
And it was weird. I don't know if I was like sleeping or if I was in like a semi-awake state or whatnot, but I just felt like there was a presence in my house, and it had come into like my doorway, and it was there to like kill me or cause some kind of harm or something with like going after my kids or something. And I rocketed up from like sleeping or in this weird state, and I was like drenched in sweat. I was shaking. I grabbed my gun, and I was ready for a fight, man. It was on. It was life or death at that point. And my heart was racing, and like like you're at that point in the last 5 minutes of a rugby game where you're just so tired and your heart's just pounding, and got all that adrenaline running through you. But I had this oversensing arc of dread and terror. I've never felt this before.
It's almost like a sixth sense type thing of something. Yeah.
And it was just so strange. And I was like, my eyes were probably this big around, and I was going through, and I was ready, man. But there was nothing there. And I briefly saw like what I thought was a personage in the doorway, and it was it was crazy, man.
Would, in the cartoons where they have, the character will run through a wall and then you just see like the imprint. Yeah. That would be me.
No. And that was the thing is I paid attention to our text feed with the group, and I asked and there was some correlation into some other things going on with some of the other guys over like a 2-week period. And I don't want to go too much into with what one of the other guys and someone else in his family experienced, but it was around that same time. And because I don't like sharing other people's personal 100%. Stuff like that. But it wasn't just me within like this 2-week period of we had some strange things happen.
It's actually interesting. It's almost like a sixth sense. I had a guest, one of the first guests on this podcast was Detective Gil Carrillo. I don't know if you're familiar with the Night Stalker serial killer case of the 1980s in California. So I think there's a documentary out about it now on Netflix. So he, in the podcast that I did with him, he had a similar thing where the one night he woke up at like 3:30 and he just had this feeling someone's in his house. His wife had moved away at that stage because they were actually in fear of their life that the Night Stalker Richard Ramirez was going to come after them. So he's in full combat mode. He's checking the house with his gun, and then he can't go back to sleep. And then the phone rings, and it's a friend of his that actually phones him and says, and I think this was then at that stage probably about 4 o'clock in the
Mm-hmm.
morning, 4 a.m., saying that another victim was just hit a couple of blocks away from her place. She thinks it's yeah. So I mean, just back to, again, that sixth sense of, you know, which is something that you can't explain. I don't think science can explain that one. And basically, where I'm going with this is, don't you guys sometimes think you're relying so much on data? You guys are doing all these experiments, but maybe it's just something that is like beyond what we as humans can quantify for us, you know, in terms of a scientific explanation. Like like an ant, for example, an ant doesn't understand how a cell phone works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe this technology or whatever it is, you know, they're kind of toying around with you guys, you know, and this is, again, this is a theory.
Oh, yeah. You're fine.
So have you guys ever thought about that?
Yeah. So this is, you're touching it. We have conversations like this all the time, and, you know, this is kind of one of those things where this is one of those fun subjects, you know, because why we try to stick so much to the scientific side of things is we're not going to just jump off the seat of our pants and just say, oh, we know what this is, or we
100%,
see it. Yeah. You know, we want to be as honest and as open as possible. And that's the whole point.
Yes.
But we also do think outside the box. And that's what's awesome. Like, I can't tell you, you know, I'm being absolutely truthful here about Erik and Travis and the way their minds are. Like, I love these two, and the ideas that they come up with, and just how brilliant they are. But that's also where it's like, we have these types of conversations, and it's the fun thing is like, what if? Yeah. And because we have these experiences happen, like the experience with these microphones, where that people don't know. I guess, have you seen those episodes that have come out recently from this last season? By chance.
Which one specific?
There's an episode where they're talking, and that we're doing an experiment, and all the guys' microphones start like feeding back on each other, and there's like this weird echo, and it's actually coming through.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So what they aren't showing you when this happened was they shut everything off that they could. And it actually happened again out here with the night of the telescopes. So they were actually away from the house, and they shut all electric components off, cameras, everything, and it was still happening.
Jeez.
Yeah, everything was off. There was not a single cell phone, nothing that was on, and they shut everything off. Wow. And this echo kept coming through the equipment. And so we're sitting here going, what is someone really listening to us? Is this like some higher intelligence technology that we cannot comprehend, and they are just sticking with us, you know? Yeah. And they're just sitting there laughing as we're running around, you know? Like one of my favorite memories, and this kind of comes back to Travis, was the first year he's out here, he has all this equipment, and he was the biggest skeptic when he came out here. And I chuckle because he's from Alabama. He's got the, you know, his accent and stuff. And he's like, I thought y'all were like these backwards hillbillies.
And he's from Alabama.
And he comes out here, and he's out here pulling his hair out, basically throwing equipment into the air, because he's like, I can't figure this shit out. None of this makes sense.
And you can see, I mean, you can see that in certain episodes where you can visibly see it, you know, he just looks frustrated.
Yeah. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. And we start having, and that leads us to having these conversations of what if, and is this some kind of energy or technology that we just can't comprehend? And that leads to some really cool theories and things. And one of my favorite theories, and I think Erik actually put a paper out on this, where he brought it back to like the Vedic scrolls from India, and they talk about these floating cities, and there was this war that happened between these cities. And so he's like, what if there's this level of technology that happened, and who knows who they were or what they were. But during that conflict, some piece of AI that could interface at some level with like the subconscious or something, if I'm getting this right.
It's deep.
In the middle of this combat, it gets hit, this structure or ship or whatever gets hit, and a piece of that computer or whatever plummets to the earth, gets embedded in the mesa. And that's what's messing with people out here, because it's trying to come back and interface with like the mother ship or whatever. But and for whatever reason, humans have potentially that connection, or and it's sitting here trying to connect with us, but we're close, but we're not it. And that's where it's messing with us. Like that's just a really cool theory that Erik came up with. And it's fun, and it's if I got it right, if I remember him explaining it to me right.
I mean, it's pretty, it's deep. But I mean, again, I've thought about it, and I'm like, well, what if it's this? What if it's another dimension? Like a way to another dimension. I think that was documented as well, that stuff was seen that it isn't seen. It's a gateway, something like that.
Like we as humans can only see so much of the light spectrum, and or we can only hear from once within a certain level, right? So what's going on that we can't hear or see, and how is there something here that we just can't see?
With production and stuff going on, do you guys find, is it sometimes frustrating in a sense that it slows down your research?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So, and this is where it's, the experiments, we're trying to do as much as we can. And everybody kind of has their stated work and what they're, everybody has their purpose. And so like when you bring in production, they're trying to catch everything live as much as possible, right? So when things are going on, they get what they can, and it's all that chaos, and things happen so fast kind of thing. But then they have to, and when things kind of calm down, they have to go through and go, okay, great, this happened, now we got to we want this camera angle, so we need you guys to try and redo that, or so we can get this camera angle. We need this, we want to do this, we want to do that. And so there is that, we're going back through and trying to recreate, we're trying to explain and get that same level of reaction and things like that. And it does slow things down a lot, and I know that's a point of frustration for a lot of us,
everyone.
But at the same time, it sucks, but it is what it is. And then we catch things all the time. I was doing a Q&A for our website 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was in the inner sanctum where all these TV screens are, and as I'm doing this Q&A, these 3 lights in a triangle formation come across the screen on the right behind me. And I'm sitting here doing the Q&A, and I see them, and I'm like, I'm just gonna do the Q&A, and then when I'm done, I'm gonna be like, hey, we got to look at this. But and during the live, because on the website we have the live camera feeds, and it's been really fun interacting with everybody on there, and there's that community that's growing on that. And there were people on there watching these lights come across, and they're all freaking out. And then my Q&A gets posted like a couple days later, and they were like, oh my gosh, and I start getting all these messages, Kaleb, did you see those lights? I'm like, so I had to do another one. I was like, yes, I saw those lights, but I just wanted to focus on one thing at a time. And when I got done with that Q&A, I immediately got Erik, brought it to his attention, and he and I went through and looked at the ADS-B radar, and he can go through, you can go back and see what aircraft were in the area at that time. And we're actually going to be doing another video that's going to get posted on the website where we're talking about this and showing what we saw and everything. And it was a very strange event, if you will. And it was really cool seeing that happen real time. And so we're catching things like that. It's not like every week, but
yeah,
it is, we do catch stuff all the time.
Have any of the cameramen or any of the production crew had any experiences?
Oh yeah. And that's a big point that drives us all crazy, because the day that Travis got those radiation burns.
Yeah.
What they're not telling you guys is all the cameras where Travis went down. All the big, expensive production cameras went down. The footage that you're seeing in the episode is from a cell phone camera.
Wow.
Because one of the producers was able to get his phone out, and why his cell phone was working, but all these other cameras wasn't, I don't know.
Yeah.
But he was able to get some of that because of the cell phone. But at the exact same time, I believe it was Erik, Tom, and Bryant. They were all up on top of the mesa doing a whole different subject or doing something up there at the exact same time. That will never get shown because all the audio was wiped. They have 3 or 4 hours of film footage of people talking, but all the audio is gone. It just wiped.
Yeah, because I mean, there's such a there's such a strong magnetic force. Compasses go wonky, cell phone signals get interrupted. I mean, your cell phone was your Apple cell phone was messed up. I mean, I thought, ghost touch or whatever, but then it wasn't that.
Yeah, who knows? And our best theory on that is that there's some kind of transient magnetic field that's moving, and for whatever reason, we have interference with things, and we can't. That's one of the things that I want to say Erik is probably the best one to ask about this stuff, because he's the one that's really trying to narrow down on this and has the best ideas on this. And like on the phone thing, I had a brand new phone. I bought a brand new phone last year, and I know Tom has a video of this. My brand new phone that I've had for 3 weeks or for 3 months at that time. Same weird crap that you're seeing in the from previous experiments and stuff and previous things. Brand new phone, exhibiting all these crazy behaviors again. And then within 2 weeks of buying that phone, I was out working out with Travis, and I come back and my phone had this series of photographs on it, and it was inside a bag, shut off. And I come back, turn my phone on, and there's these new photos on it. Something had gone in and taken photos. And when you start looking at the photographs, it's weird. It's something messing with the physical memory on the phone is the best way I've been told it's what it's doing. And there's these jagged lines and like this weird distortion. Like I've been seeing this app or something where this thing moves across the screen, and you can sit there and move your hand, and it like sits there and makes all these lines. That's kind of some of it was similar to that, but it's just weird, really, really weird stuff. And that was within 2 weeks of me having this phone.
Jeez.
And that's not the first time it's happened. I've had stuff like that happen the last 5 years on multiple phones. And it's not just my phone. Tons of people have had weird experiences.
Yeah.
One of our guests last year, he was coming on, and this was actually the same week that I had those photos. He comes on, and he tried calling someone, and it was like there was like this weird electronic, like he was being jammed or something.
Okay.
On the other line, and it was this weird electronic sound, and that happened to my phone too, and we actually have a recording of it.
Wow.
And it's just weird. So yeah, stuff like that happens all the time too, and for whatever reason, I don't know.
Do you guys have trouble sleeping at night?
Yeah, sometimes.
Listen, you guys must obviously have your And I mean, this, I suppose, comes part and parcel with all paranormal research and stuff that you're doing. You guys have a lot of skeptics?
Oh yeah. Especially now it's becoming more mainstream where I'm seeing a lot more, and there, I know there's always going to be people that just have to push, like they have to argue, like everybody knows the sky's blue, but you know, you could post the sky's blue today and someone will get on there and be like, no, it's not, it's red.
Yeah.
You're always going to have that kind of mindset, and that's fine. We get that. And that's again why we come back to why we want to be so good about why we're trying to stick to the scientific method, trying to be able to have repeatable data. But that's also why we're pulling our hair out, because some of these things we can't repeat.
Yeah, well, exactly. But I think for a personal experience, it must be amazing.
Yeah, like
you do. It's kind of like the real life X-Files that you guys are living.
We've, one of the jokes I had with Brandon the one day was I'm Hopper on Stranger Things. I'm the sheriff, and I'm just going, I'm not at the level of this right now. Like, there's smarter people. I'm just here.
I've got to say, the one thing that I found, obviously with COVID and stuff, a lot of people have been watching reality TV, that type of stuff. It's, I mean, the show is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to phrase this the right way. It's the things that happen aren't...
They're not staged. They're not...
No. It's not staged. It's not so unbelievable. It's weird. It's weird as hell. Weird. But it's not that sensational where people are like, well, me, where I'm like, there's no way. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of...
Okay. Yeah.
It's very fascinating from a scientific perspective.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you guys haven't shown werewolves and witches flying over a full moon, or so, when that happens, then I mean, people are going to be like, okay,
right? So I get what you're saying, because we get asked this a lot, because obviously with it being a reality TV show, there have been shows that have been proven that they were staged. There were that kind of stuff going on.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I kind of jumped the gun on that one.
No worries.
Everything that you're seeing is as we're seeing it live, and we have these strange things happening. And yes, and that's what, like with my story, with my that I told you, my first experience with the light, I kind of found out that the other two people that were there kind of embellished it a little bit, and it drives me nuts, because this stuff is so crazy by itself. It needs no embellishment, and it just, there's things like, and that just takes away from it.
Yeah, exactly.
People have these experiences, and multiple witnesses, multiple people, and this is the crazy thing, is like kind of going back to, like, say the production crew that's been out here. It's been really cool seeing the guys who have been able to come back every year. The first year they come out here, and we have some pretty strange experiences happen. And these same guys come back the next year, and it was almost like they'd been like, okay, that, whatever, they were able to kind of convince themselves that it wasn't what it was, kind of thing. They come back the second year, and we have even more crazy things, and then they come back for the third year, and they were all on board. The guys who've been out here multiple years, and they were like, holy, like, I can't wait to see what happens next. And I get that this, and that's what's cool, is this stuff. The joke between Erik and Travis last year was, if I was going to make something up, this would not be it.
Well, exactly. I mean, the stuff is so, it's very realistic in a way. I use the word sensational. You guys haven't sensationalized anything. I mean, I have a friend, and I told him I'm doing the podcast with you, and he's like, oh, cool. The show gets boring after a while. But I'm like, yeah, but you're missing that's kind of a compliment in a way, because you guys aren't over sensationalizing it. Do you know what I mean? You're not doing stuff for dramatic effect, for television. Do you know what I mean?
We're not, no, we as the like the core five, if you will, there's Travis and Tom and Bryant and Ian. no, we're not gonna do that. And yeah, I know exactly where he's coming from, because even like there's things that happen and I'm like,
Yeah, exactly.
as crazy as that sounds, there are some of those things that I go, yeah, again, yeah.
But then
Okay,
when something were to happen, you know, let's say for argument's sake, in the next season or whatever have you, you guys get footage of a werewolf running somewhere or a zombie or, you know, whatever, then people will be like, it's bullshit. It's
I know,
bullshit.
and that's
So
kind of one of the
catch-22 situation.
if we literally catch the like little green man running across the screen or something, you know, people are gonna be like, there's gonna be that element, oh, it's whatever, you know.
Yeah,
and that'll be something I'll have to go home and be like, did I really see what I saw? You know, like I'll have to do a lot of soul searching to, and that was my thing is like with what I saw with Travis out here, I'm very confident in telling that because Travis was right there with me and we were both looking at this. He actually saw before me because he was stacked up behind me.
Yeah.
As we turn this corner and I'm focused over here because I had my pistol out because there's some things that happened that I had that sixth sense kind of going off.
Yeah.
And I'm focused on where I'm at, and Travis sees it over my shoulder and gets a good look at it before I did. And I swing over and I still have my hands and everything else in front of my face too, you know. But I was able to I got a really good photo of it and in my mind, and I wish I could, you know, I wish I could have like a wire where I could plug it into, you know, and people could see what I saw. And too bad we don't have that technology yet, but it's stuff like that where I was hesitant to talk about some stuff because I was the only one that saw it.
Well, I mean, that must be another thing. You could see the most profound thing, but you'd probably be hesitant to tell anyone about it because they'd think, okay, Caleb's lost the plot now.
Right. And that's, and again, and that's why like I try so hard to just it's my police and military training kicking in, and I just try to stick to that. Like, this is what I saw, and I don't know what it is. I'm not going to sit here and tell you or be like, oh, I know what it is. I have no idea what I don't know. I'm just going to tell you what I saw, and I hope that we have, or that there's another witness, and or we have video or something, you know. And again, I think that's how all of us, that's our mindset is. Again, I can't say this enough. That's why we try to stick to, if we can, we get the data, or we have the video and with multiple angles, you know, we try to catch everything we can. At the same time, there's things that we just can't explain. I'm thinking of the Rabi experience and with his chanting and what we caught in the FLIR camera. And
yeah, that was interesting.
Oh yeah, that was probably one of my favorite.
Yeah, that freaked me out. That was interesting.
Yeah, that was really cool. And watching that, because that was the crazy thing, was that I was watching Travis and Tom and Bryant, and there was a camera guy down there with them too, and another person, and you could see him walking towards Homestead 2, and whatever this was moving away from him.
Yeah.
And then when they went into Homestead 2, it was like it came back around and like went another way. It was like they were chasing it, or it was avoiding it. It was crazy. And I was watching this live on the FLIR. And I was like, and they were asking over the radio, what did you see? It's like, dude, it's just gonna be easier if you guys come up here and I could show you on the screen. You know.
If I was there when that happened, I had a bottle of tequila handy, I would have probably started chugging that thing. I mean,
right. And that's insane. And that's what's I know it's, and again, you guys are seeing when it 1%. Comes to 1%, like there's Erik and Thomas sat down and did the math, and you guys are literally seeing less than 1%.
Yeah,
really. And then again, the malfunctions or the things that are happening with productions equipment. We have so many redundancies in that. But at the same time, like there's so much stuff that doesn't get caught or won't get shown, and there's things that frustrate us, but then again, that's why we have our website, is because we want to get all that information out there. And there's things that we, for whatever reason, like one person might find this extremely extraordinary, while another person will be like, eh.
Yeah.
No.
Well, exactly. Well, I think, especially with, with the amount of reality television and stuff, I mean, reality television is, the shows like Bravo, and, my wife watches, the Real Housewives of whatever freaking cities on.
Oh, you poor bastard.
Yes. And she's, then she'd start having conversations about it. Like, oh, I can't believe, let's call her Susan, did this to that. And I'm like, listen, this isn't real. It is, no one's life is that interesting.
Yeah.
Second of all, and this is where I think your show gets a lot of credibility, is because it doesn't seem like, it's forced, things are forced to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're not trying to force anything. We're just trying to figure stuff out. And one of the jokes is we're always, especially Travis, he's Rocket Man. He wants to shoot rockets, and and for whatever reason, stuff happens, and there's some of the bigger stuff that I feel like kind of doesn't get the attention that it kind of should.
Yeah. In terms of what gets shown on in the show.
Yeah, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm angry with the production company or anything like that. Like they're great at what they do, and they're showing some real, and the camera guys, they're the stuff that they're able to catch, and they're great. Like, these guys, they are good at what they're doing, but there are things that we're going, what are you doing? Like, why? What? There's no, I just don't know what they're thinking.
Well, isn't that basically where your research kind of clashes with the their occupation, which is, I'm trying to get the best footage for TV, so to speak.
Yeah, there, and I get that. There's because people do want to, for whatever reason, people do respond well to big visual things, and just this sec. Okay. Yeah. So, one of the, I like this. I hear this a lot. Erik just passed me. No, we're not here to believe, and we're not here to disbelieve. We're here to observe.
Yes.
And that's really what and I love that. That it's really, because we can get really excited and talk about some of this stuff. And I really, and again, this is why I love Erik to death, because of his perspective and how he brings us down. And really, I just love it. We're here to observe. Yeah. And that's all we do at the end of the day.
I mean, that's what I mean. You guys, your job is to do the research. But sometimes it must get frustrating that the best parts of the research, according to you guys, doesn't get shown to the viewers.
There's a lot of very important information that we're like, oh man, that like blows us away, and that doesn't get shown because it's not the most visually exciting thing,
the most visually stimulating, as they say.
And that, I get it, and it's fine. Again, that's what's cool about stuff like this, is we're able to talk to people and give them more information. And again, that's what the website and the insider program's all about, is getting people to be a part of it and participate in it and really observe with us and have those experiences and see that this is cool stuff, and it's really exciting, and it's fun being a part of it.
I think I'm a fan. I think it's awesome, the things you guys are doing. I think it's a great show.
Thank you.
Yeah, listen, you guys, you and Travis, you guys work out a lot. How often?
Yes,
How
we
often do you guys work out? I'm going to segue into fitness real quick.
Right. I guess this is the third podcast we'll have to do is come back talk about fitness. So when he's out here, we try to work out every day. He's a big CrossFit guy.
Yeah.
And that's usually what we do out here. It actually fits very well with the environment. We don't have a gym out here. We have a couple bars and we get as much what we can, and we're doing a lot more like body movements, things like that. We actually get like a punching bag and do different strikes and things like that, and just anything that is kind of useful. We do more kind of that level of training. And then when he's not here and it's kind of off season, if you will, I go to the gym for 2-3 hours a day. And then obviously with my law enforcement involvement, I keep myself at a higher level than what normal people would, just because I've been in those situations where you're fighting with someone and you're trying to put handcuffs on them, and you got to stay in shape.
Yeah.
I'm just a happier person working out.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And it's easy to get out of it, and then you come back and you realize, oh, I lost all those games or whatever. But yeah, that's one of those things we try to stay. Travis and I enjoy going out and working out like that. And that's actually something we're wanting to do, the Murph, if you're familiar with that. So actually this week, it was like 2 or 3 days ago, one of the Murph is in honor of a guy named Lieutenant Michael Murphy.
Okay.
And a couple Navy SEALs. The movie Lone Survivor.
Yes.
That's what this guy's favorite workout was.
Okay.
The lieutenant who went up and made the phone call, that's Lieutenant Michael Murphy.
Okay.
And so Travis and I have done that every year. And we actually are kind of wanting to bring more attention to that, just because all the proceeds go to that. I actually have the hat that they give us this year. So I signed up for that. He had that idea. Let's do that this year. They extended that out. So that's something that we enjoy doing. And oh man, it sucks. It kicks your butt. It's 100 pull-ups, like 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and you run a mile before and then run a mile after, and you have like a weighted vest. Or I got my my tactical vest with the rifle plates that I'll put into it, and those are about 20 pounds. But that's one of the workouts that you would do over there. Like in the military, we would do stuff like that all the time, where you're doing body weight, you're using your equipment, I use the tanker bar. We had an 80-pound bar that you go crank stuff on the tank with, and we'd be using that for stuff. So kind of, but yeah, that's what the Murph is. And so we'll be doing that. And I'll actually tell you one of our things, we call it the Skinwalker crawl.
Yeah.
So we have the lane that comes down from the command center down to the front gate. It's about half a mile. And what we do is we actually add to it later on, but the first thing we do, the base is you take 2 25-pound plates, and you're just gripping them, and that's what one person is doing, and he's kind of one that sets the pace, because your grip's is like the first thing to go. So one person's carrying that, then the other person has a regular barbell.
Okay.
And you can start with whatever weight you want, but that person puts it on his shoulder, kind of like a milkman carry.
Okay.
And so it's a 2-person thing. And so the person carrying the 25-pound plates, he's just carrying it like as far as he can, and you're just running as far as you can. And then your grip goes, you lose the plates, and that's where you change positions.
Oh, okay. All right.
And so you're going down, and you go down all the way to the front of the gate, and so it takes us 15-20 minutes, if maybe a little bit longer, but it kicks our butt. but that's one of our favorite things to do. And
Well,
so we kind of,
I suppose for mental well-being, considering what you guys do, it's kind of a must.
yeah, it's kind of the decompression thing, and
Yes.
and you know, we enjoy it, and uh we just enjoy going out and doing that. It just keeps us in a good place.
Have you guys ever considered sleeping in one of the homesteads to see what'll happen?
Yeah, we have people always telling us that they'll go out and do that. We haven't, just because yeah, it is one of those areas that we have some really strange stuff, and
Yeah.
and inside the homesteads, I think it's just too dangerous anyways. Just they're very dilapidated, and we actually don't like walking in. I don't like walking into them very often, just because you never know if they could come down or something. But I don't think that'd be something that we would ever allow someone to do. And again, we just have, from the radiation experiences and these different things that have happened, that's something that I don't think we would ever do.
And my final question, I could have probably Googled this, but I thought it would be fun to ask you. Bryant, where does the nickname Dragon?
Okay, so Brandon actually tweeted that out to a couple weeks ago, if I remember right. But essentially, one of the first, there was a group that came out. Bryant was out here with them. There was a photo taken of him, and he's sitting there with his rifle and all that. And this photo got posted on Facebook somehow. And this is years ago. And I guess there was some other individual who looked similar to Bryant that's in private security, and his called Dragon too.
Okay. And
someone got on there and kind of was making fun of that a little bit on one of the comment sections. And they were like, "I am Dragon, hear me roar," or something. And Brandon thought that was just hilarious, and he started calling Bryant that, and he just
stuck,
and he just kept doing it till it stuck. So, and it's funny. It is what it is. So, and Bryant was he fought against it, but he's a good sport. So,
yeah, you guys seem to have a great camaraderie going on, which is probably essential for what you guys do. And yeah, man, Kaleb, it's been an honor. I mean, I could spend the whole day talking about this stuff. It's extremely fascinating. It's awesome what you guys do. And man,
thanks, man. It's fun. We have a really good relationship. And I feel like the five of us have a really good relationship, and I think that's a big part of it, is we're kind of on that same level. And every group has it. We have disagreements and things like that, but at the end of the day, we're all on the same page, and we have each other's backs, and that's a big part of it. And yeah, I enjoy talking with guys about this, and it's been great talking with you, and I appreciate you having me on, and it's been really cool.
Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it.